Thanks everyone for being here today. My name is Gabriela Renteria Flores, and I'm the chair of Evil Youth Global Network. And Evil Youth Global Network is a network of young people and for young people. And we seek to promote young and emerging evaluators, or as we know it, YES, participation in all stages of evaluation. And I'm really glad to be here with all of you. Today, we have a great panel in which we'll introduce the topic of meaningful engagement of youth in evaluation. The panelists will share their experience on engaging young professionals in evaluation from different perspectives. And we hope you leave today with a better understanding on why it is important to include youth in evaluation, and maybe with a few ideas on how to do it. With this purpose, I will introduce to our panelists. We have Marco Segone, who's the director of the Evaluation Office at the UNFPA. And previously, he was the director of the Evaluation Office at UN Women, chair of United Nations Evaluation Group, the network of evaluation offices of 46 UN agencies. He was also a co-founder and co-chair of Evil Partners and Evil Gender Plus. Before that, Marco was responsible for decentralized evaluation function, as well as the National Evaluation Capacity Development portfolios at the UNICEF Evaluation Office. Marco was also regional chief monitoring and evaluation in the UNICEF Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia, Regional Office for Latin America and the Caribbean, Brazil Country Office, and Niger Country Office. Marco also worked in the international NGOs in Albania, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand, and Uganda. And he has authored dozens of publications, including Evaluating the SDGs with a No One Left Behind lens, Evaluation for Equitable Development Results, and How to Design and Manage Equity-Focused Evaluations. Welcome today, Marco. We also have Mr. Alois Ratemo. He is an economist with a master's degree in economic policy management from Makerere University, graduated with a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Nairobi. And he also holds a diploma in monitoring and evaluation from the Institute of Applied Manpower Research in India. He has attended senior management courses, strategic leadership development program, and many other courses. He's a registered member economist of the Economic Society of Kenya, and he has 27 years hands-on progressive experience in project planning, coordination, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation in the public sector. He has also extensive experience with UN agencies in development and coordination of the implementations of various work plans. And thanks for being here today. We also have Alfredo Dominguez. Alfredo is the IOC president, vice coordinator of the Network for Monitoring, Evaluation, and Systematization of Latin America and the Caribbean, RELAC. And he's also the treasurer of the National BOPE in Mexico. He was also a coordinator of Evil Youth Mexico chapter during 2019 and 2020. He is dedicated to developing evaluation skills in evaluators, young and emerging evaluators, as well as senior evaluators. And he's a tireless promoter of the culture of evaluation. And thanks for being here, Alfredo. Finally, we have Daniel Alonso. Daniel is an evaluator specialized in international development with more than 11 years experience in transforming findings into lessons to accelerate development effectiveness. He currently works at the Independent Evaluation Office of UNDP, and he is the lead evaluator of the Youth Economic Empowerment Evaluation presented in 2022 to UNDP board. Before joining the UN, he worked as evaluation officer at the African Development Bank in Abidjan and the European Commission in LAC region. Well, welcome also, Daniel. Thanks for being here. Well, now I will ask the speakers to first be mindful of the time, and we will start with Marco, who will present us the meaningful engagement of youth in evaluation to increase the transformative power of evaluation to reach the furthest behind. Thank you, Marco.
Muchas gracias, Gabriela, and benvenuti a tutti, benvenuti everybody. As we are in the last session of a very long day, I would like to start with a very quick question. That is an easy one. How many people are living in our planet? 4 billion, 5 billion? 8
Eight.
7, 8, 7.5. Wow, you are a statistician.
8 billion
8.
by November 12.
Oh.
Yeah, 7.
Okay, I think it's between the two, because the projection are that by 15 of November, I mean, you say 12, but either 12 or 15 November, we will reach 8 billion people. So probably now we are 7.5, perhaps. And in 1 month's time, it will be 8 billions. What is the, not here. Let's see. Okay. And in addition to the fact that there will be 8 billion people, 16% of the global population nowadays are young people, and this will raise to 23% by 2030. So the key message here is that there is really a very great opportunity for almost infinite possibilities of humanity to build the world that we want. Unfortunately, we already heard also yesterday at the opening that the world is, facing a lot of interconnected challenges. And the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, presented last year what he called our common agenda. That is really an agenda to accelerate the progress towards the SDGs. Again, yesterday we heard that because of the pandemic, few years ago, let's say, and now because of many other reasons, including, the global political situation, climate crisis, etc., the SDGs are not on track anymore. But what the Secretary General was saying is that we should really listen to and work with young people, because young people are really part of the solution. And I always say that young people is not about the future, but it's about today. And because already today, young people are taking the leadership in several things, in addressing the climate crisis, inequalities, poverty, and you name it. So why it's important to engage young people in general and also in evaluation? Because engaging youth in evaluation is a real opportunity. They improve the relevance and quality of evaluation, they amplify youth voices and agency, they enhance SDGs implementation, monitoring, and reviews, even holding governments and different partners accountable, brings out-of-the-box solution and perspectives, and really multiplies the transformational power of evaluation. But of course, it has to be an intergenerational alliance. I think young people cannot do it alone. And we may say that we were young a few years ago, also cannot do it alone. I think we really need to have this connection and this intergenerational alliance. Always keeping in mind that when we talk about empowering people, strengthening capacities, etc., we always talk about a complex system. So we're not talking only about individual capacities, but also institutional capacities and enabling environment. So how to strengthen the enabling environments, institutional capacities, and individual capacities of young people so that they can really become actors for a transformation. Well, when it comes to building an enabling environment, I just wanted to mention, some of you probably are aware of an advocacy movement that is called the Decade of Evaluation for Action, or Eval for Action. This is a global movement in the area of evaluation, but is not composed only by evaluators, but also by policymakers, because in reality is led by the Global Able Use Forum that Gabriela leads, UNFPA Evaluation Office, and the Global Parliamentarian Forum for Evaluation. So it's quite interesting, United Nations young people and parliamentarians coming together really to strengthen the enabling environment for young people. And Eval for Action just last year launched another campaign that is Youth in Evaluation. And again, it's a multi-stakeholders and intergenerational call to action to commit to enhance the meaningful engagement of youth in evaluation. And through this Youth in Evaluation campaign, there is a manifesto for youth and really a call to us for a commitment to engage youth in a meaningful manner. And we will hear more about this manifesto later in this session. But just for you to be aware, already 500 people signed this manifesto, including 115 organizations, going from multinational agencies like, from the World Bank to the African Bank to UNFPA, UNDP, ILO, etc., to governments, government of Kenya, government of India. And today we will hear other representatives from national governments who will also sign today. And also, civil society organizations, VOPES, the Voluntary Organization for Professional Evaluation, and academia, etc. So it's really a multi-stakeholder movement that is really trying to make a difference and to facilitate the meaningful engagement of young people in evaluation. In addition, as UNFPA, we also led a meta-synthesis to produce evidence on what works to meaningfully engage young people. So it was a work done with other UN agencies and also with the UN Envoy for Youth from the Secretary General of the United Nations, really to try to extract from different evaluations what are the good practices and lessons learned in engaging young people. So moving from the enabling environment to the institutional capacities, the manifesto that I just mentioned before, and we will talk a little bit more, is just a manifesto. Now, for those 115 organizations and 500 people who sign it, now the challenge is how to implement it. And to facilitate the implementation, there are 6 task forces, again, multi-stakeholders task forces from members from all over the world, working together to create standards for the meaningful engagement of young evaluators. And also, talking about institutional capacities is very important also to strengthen the EvalUse, both the global network and the regional networks, because likely EvalUse has regional networks in all the regions, but also to enhance use in the leadership positions of different organizations. And then, of course, also strengthen individual capacities. And, the EvalUse Global Network, with the support of UNFPA and others, also created career development training. So not only training about how to be a good evaluator from a technical point of view, but how to strengthen your profile to become a young evaluators. And last but not least is really that we, and now I'm talking as UNFPA, UN agencies, how can we really facilitate the access of young evaluators in the labor market, and how we can really try to facilitate young people to be young evaluators, but also decision makers of evaluations. And for example, in one of our corporate evaluations, we have young people as evaluators, but also we created a youth steering committee that is co-managing together with the evaluation office this corporate evaluation, so that young people has decision power in the process of the evaluation. So with this, I will finish really with a call to join this manifesto for youth in evaluation, but again, we will hear later. So thanks a lot for your attention. Sorry for the 30 seconds delay.
Thank you, Marco. And yes, we will talk a little bit more about all of these initiatives, but still, if you have questions and if you want to know more, you can approach to us or later when we have also a Q&A session. Now I will ask Mr. Alois Rotemo to share with us the experience from the government of Kenya on how youth participation in evaluation has been taken care and what are the challenges and the lessons learned.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon. Let me start by thanking the organizers of this conference, the UNDP, the GEI, for inviting us to make a presentation and share with you. It's really an exciting moment, and I want to pick from where Director Mark left, because we are talking about the youth. And this is the period where we are saying that let the youth pick from where we are and we move ahead with them. And I'll be sharing with you the kind of work which we have done, because as the government of Kenya, on behalf of the government of Kenya, we were able to sign the manifesto in April. And I would like to share with you what we have done so far, what is coming out. And I want to assure you that it's an exciting moment, because we are talking about the youths, we are talking about the current leadership, and we are talking about the future leadership. As part of the introduction, Director talked about the world population, 8 billion. But coming back home, when you look at the Kenya population is just the youthful population. The census was conducted 2019. The figures which came out is that 75% of that population should be classified as youthful. These are the people whom we cannot ignore when you talk about matters of development, when you talk about matters of evaluation. When you look into the Constitution of Kenya, the Constitution of Kenya is categorical about who is the youth. Because, you know, you have had cases where somebody 70 years old is saying that he's calling himself a youth, but the Constitution is clear that Article 260 is saying somebody who is 18 and before 34 can be classified as a youth. Also, the same Constitution mandates the government to support the youth. We are committing the government to ensure that the youth can also access training opportunities. The youths also should be protected by some harmful practices. We are talking about access to employment opportunities. Now, since we signed this manifesto, what are the issues which we have witnessed as a country? Of course, these are the issues which are cutting across. Some of the issues is that we are talking about knowledge and capacity, opportunities for the youths. We are talking about the youths in evaluation, but do they have the capacity to conduct those evaluations? We are talking about trainings. Which kind of trainings are we offering these youths? Of course, as a country, we have got the M&A curriculum, which is being implemented in the various universities. We've got support from various partners, UN Family, the Twendembere Initiative, but have we been able to equip these youths with the required skills so that they can be able to participate in the evaluations? How about logistical support? We would like the youth to participate in evaluations, but can they afford? We are talking about NEC 2022. How many can we be able to count as youths? Looking at that definition of Kenya, 18 to 34. Who are they? You know, we will invite them and ask them to fund themselves. Can they be able to afford to make it? Some other issues which are also cutting across is employment opportunities. In Kenya, you find that this sector, the youths, they are really suffering with the issues of unemployment. We produce more into the market, but we absorb little in the market. How about the digital divide? Internet connectivity. I'm coming from a country where we are talking about 98% of internet connectivity. But when you talk about the rural areas, how is the situation? Most of these youths are also found in the rural areas. Can they be able to access internet? Because we are talking about online reporting, we are talking about real-time reporting, we are talking about technology, access to technology. These youth we are talking about, can they be able to access internet? Finances, we want these people to undertake evaluations. They may require some resources to register either companies, agencies, so that they can be able to access those contracts which we offer as the public sector. Can they afford? Then what have we learned the few days we have been working with them? We are talking about caring and skilled adults. We are saying, let us work with the youths, but we need some experts to be reading them. And the few years which you have worked with them is that, you know, these youths are really excited about the kind of work. These are the people who are technological savvy. But we are saying also it's important to address these adults because, you know, adults, you need also to be trained on how to manage the what? The youths. Times are changing. Since times are changing and you'll be providing that leadership, working with the youths who are willing to take over from you, we are saying that it's important also to continue building the capacities of the adults as the youths continue working under them. Another point which is kind of related to what you have said is that we are talking about partnership. We are encouraging the youths. What is coming out is that the youths are willing to work with some experienced reader, experienced evaluator, whom they can work hand in hand so that they can be able to deliver. This is working well. We have got 20 Embedded initiative, which has embraced rapid evaluations, where we are saying that you can get an expert reading those evaluation processes, but we have got the young evaluators who can be able to work with them so that we can continue building these internal capacities. How about trust? We need to trust one another. You know, as readers, as adults, as experts, let us not be suspicious that these youths will take over from us and will be obsolete. That's why we are saying that let us involve these youths right from development of the terms of reference. We work with them all through. The moment we build that trust, then these youth will be able to take over and will be able to take advantage of their energy and the skills. Issue of training and support, I've really talked about the issue of trainings. We are really talking about let us have the relevant training which can be able to assist this evaluation function. In Kenya, we have got these internship programs where we get youths to be attached to experienced readers who can be able to guide them all through. I've talked about the courses. And the last one is enthusiasm. When you look at these youths, these are people who are willing. These are people who are exploring. They have got the energy. These are the people whom we are looking at and banking on them. We've rolled out an electronic system in terms of tracking, but we are saying these youths, because they are technical savvy, these are the people who are willing to pick and move forward. As I conclude, we are saying that the youths will continue remaining a significant part of our population. This is the current and this is the future. And we are saying the youths must continue standing for them. The future of Kenya stands with them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot and great timing. It was only 15 seconds left. Thanks for sharing this very practical experience and what are the main challenges that might be relatable to some of your countries or your context, but also the lessons learned. What can we do to address such challenges? And now I will ask Alfredo to come and talk to us about the role of voluntary organizations for professional evaluation in advocating for and capacity building of youth participation in evaluation. Thanks, Alfredo.
Thanks, Gabriela. Well, let me try to understand how I'm gonna use all that kind of thing. Yeah. Well, first, my name is Alfredo Dominguez. I'm the IOC president of the International Organization for Cooperation on Evaluation, IOC, and I was invited to share with you a few minutes what is the role of voluntary organizations in promoting capacity buildings and participation in evaluation. Well, the first thing I would like to comment is that IOC represent more than 160 BOPIs in more than 107 countries globally. So BOPIs are all around the world. As the global voice of BOPIs, our goal is to strengthen evaluation worldwide by sharing evaluation methods, theories, and practice, and to promote good governance and recognition of the value of the evaluation in improving people's lives. And this is really the main goal of all the BOPIs around the world. And this is why are we here? Well, why engage with Gs? The answer to this question is related to sustainability of evaluation globally and the incorporation of new ideas and vision that contribute to the adaptability of evaluation, as Marco said before, and how Alois commented in the presentation. The following information that you are watching in the presentation was taken from a document toolkit for engaging young and emergency evaluator. And it's an excellent document with important data of the participation of youth and of GEs in BOPES. We have to give the thanks to those who promote the development of this document. Another very important thing is essential to recognize the engagement with young and emergency evaluation that represents a win-win for everyone in the ecosystem of evaluation and will allow the evaluation to be strengthened and improve, allowing more information and evidence for decision-making worldwide web. Because we really need this integration of youth to sustain the ecosystem of evaluation. Well, this is very important because we always ask how is BOPES committed with the youth participation. And to answer this question, it's necessary first show how many networks have information about the number of G members. And if you see the chart, you can see that 62% of the BOPI belongs to IOC have data of whether their members are G. And maybe this looks like a big number, but we have 38% of networks doesn't have information. And the thing is that doesn't have information. Maybe they have Gs, but they don't know. Well, if we go deep, the following graph is very revealing and it shows the composition of the BOPI considering their number of Gs. And if you can see, the darker squares represent more Gs as member of the BOPI. And the number is lower. If we can see, there are no more than 10% of networks or BOPIs that have a majority of Gs. And this is something really, really worry because if you look the numbers, there are more Gs in the world and we need to give them spaces. Well, there are a lot of data in the chart, but I think this is relevant. So, what we have learned from IOC? Many BOPES are closer to receiving new members, including young and evaluators and emergency evaluators, and others receive about don't develop activities that are really of interest to them or do not contribute to strengthening their profiles and capacities. And we have not only this a problem of retention of Gs. Many Gs don't find a way or not a way, an idea to be in the networks. Okay, and another ideas is there are networks which G are not invited to occupy a significant position within the evaluation process or giving a G a position in the governance structure of the BOPI or occupy spaces from appropriate network activities. And this is a worry because we need to give the G the opportunity to really have a space that is relevant. Yeah, and not only the space in the network, the space in every position in the ecosystem. Well, what are the future of challenges of the IOC and promote the advocacy and capacity building of Gs in BOPIs? Well, in this scenario, we are the challenge of IOC. We have a lot of challenge, but I want to put the eye in one, is promote commitment among the members of the global evaluation ecosystem to work in a coordinated manner in different regions. And in this event, we find many of us that are part of the ecosystem. And therefore, I invite to join us in government, academy, and UN agencies, among the others, to work and ensure the growth of the GIA participation and the sustainability of evaluation in the future. We have here many governments, many institutions that have the opportunity to give out the Gs and space to really show us that they are really persons that have a lot of capacities and a lot of possibilities to bring innovation to evaluation. Well, the next, if we have to give an idea, we need to develop a strategy for development, training, and inclusion. This strategy have to mean that work together between different organizations and really let spaces for young people. Well, if we think in BOPES, I think we have 4 things to really try to push. The first thing is understanding the evaluation ecosystem in each region and encourage the active participation of its members in the ecosystem, which is very important. And one day before, we have especially a session about the ecosystem or the system of evaluation. And every country have a different system. So if we want to really make the youth grow, we need to understand all the ecosystem and find a way to open a space for them. The second one is find the new ways to sustain the Gs in the governance and developing activities with their, within their ecosystem, because open the spaces for G is not open the spaces to work with us. It's open the spaces to let them lead and to let them bring ideas to the new ways to think and evaluation. The third one is ensure the center spaces of participation for Gs among the different members of the evaluation ecosystem. And we are worried to really give them an opportunity with decent salary or decent opportunities. You deserve not only be auxiliaries, they really have to be on the line and leading activities. And the last is to ensure the soft skill of its member, mainly Gs, as part of the screening BOPES. And well, I think this is playing along, but we need to give more soft skills to everybody and mainly Gs. Well, and I'm short of time, but finally, I really want to say that sustainability for evaluation is an opportunity and a commitment of the BOPES with young and emerging evaluator. And I want to say that the future is now, how Marcus said before. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfredo. And if you're wondering where all this data comes from, you're welcome to visit EvalYouth's website. We have developed actually this toolkit for engaging young and emerging evaluators in BOPES. It can give you an idea on exactly that. How is the stage of the engagement of youth in BOPES, but it can also give you some ideas in how to get young people involved in different stages of evaluation and evaluation processes. What are the main challenges? It's free. It was developed by EvalYouth. Amanda Mother shared that she's a young and emerging evaluator who actually developed this toolkit, and it was financed by UNFPA. So thanks. And if you want to go, just go click on evalyouth.org. You can find it all the resources and you will get all the information there. And thanks, Alfredo, for sharing these reflections on how to involve youth in evaluation. And finally, but not least, it's a very interesting presentation by Daniel, who will talk to us about the role of development partners to ensure reaching further behind by promoting youth participation in evaluation. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for choosing this session. So you heard from my colleagues on their experience how to engage youth in the evaluation process. I will now adding the experience of UNDP and in particular the Independent Evaluation Office of UNDP, and taking the example of the Youth Economic Empowerment Evaluation that we presented to the board in early 2022. I think that evaluation was an opportunity for this office, so the IO, to really look beyond the traditional practice of engaging with youth and really try to create a meaningful participation, engaging for the voice and also agency of youth in the evaluation process. So I only have a few minutes, so I won't enter in all the aspects of the evaluation, but really focus on the elements that I believe are key for the engagement of youth. And when I'm talking about youth, is youth in general and youth as young emerging evaluators. So when conceptualizing our evaluation, we look at how could we integrate youth in the process. And we look at 3 steps: preparation, data collection, and obviously reporting and analysis. So we started by consulting the evaluation community, so our partners. What are their experience in engaging with youth in the evaluation process? What are the good practices, and what works and what doesn't? And we discussed with World Bank, several UN agencies. We had more experience than us, but also Evalues and other partners. And I think that was a very critical part for the way we frame our evaluation. And there is a lot of lessons learned that can be extracted from this conversation. And I think that many practices that I will be presenting in one slide, because you'll be glad to hear that I only have one slide, is that many of those practices was actually extracted for this initial conversation that we had with those agency, and how we fine-tune to adapt to the particular need of our evaluation. So moving on, the second aspect of preparation. So we established an external advisory panel. So the panel mandate was to follow us in the full process and cycle of the evaluation, and really review all the products of the evaluation. So there is nothing new about an external advisory panel, except in our case that one of the 3 panelists was actually a young individual. And I cannot stress enough how insightful and enriching it was to have him as part of this advisory panel, especially when we start discussing the experience of youth, how they move from a psychological empowerment to behavioral empowerment, when we discuss the theory of change and the signification framework. The third and last point for this pillar on preparation is that it's not sufficient to have a sound methodological approach to engage youth. You also need to be ethically robust. And for that, we work with an external ethical review board. We reviewed the entirety of our data collection process to make sure that we were going in the right direction, reviewing our protocols and make sure that they all were ethical. So moving to data collection. So I will start by mentioning that youth is not an homogeneous constituency. So there is an intersectionality of serious factors. There is obviously age, there is gender, ethnicity, the locality, if you are rural or living in urban space. And all of those impact the way you need to engage them. In the case of our evaluation, so the Youth Economic Empowerment Evaluation, we decided to select a tool which is called Participatory Narrative Survey. And the idea is that this tool is able to navigate through this intersectionality that I was mentioning. Instead of having interview, what we do is that we collect a narrative story from the youth, just to obtain the youth perspective of the change that was induced by UNDP intervention in different contexts, because we had several projects from UNDP that we analyzed, 7 in total. Another very positive feature of that tool is that we learn engaging with our partners that sometimes youth feel very uncomfortable when engaging in the interview, a formal interview process. While story, it was reported that it's much easier and less intimidating than the formal interview. So at the end of this process, we managed to collect over 600 stories over these 7 interventions that I was mentioning earlier. The second point, when you're engaging with youth, and that is youth as a beneficiary, is that you need to overcome several barriers. Though there are barriers about digital divide that we heard early on. There is literacy, there is language, which is the obvious one. There is also a financial capacity. When you try to engage with youth within the evaluation process, you really need to try to address those barriers. So we tried, with some successes, some failures. For giving some example, for example, for the digital divide, what we did is we tried to establish several partnerships with municipalities so that the young beneficiary and participant could have access to the facilities, the computers, and the internet. Regarding literacy, what we provided is the opportunity to do voice recording instead of filling up or write a survey or their story. And for the last one, which is the financial capacity to be able to attend and be part of the evaluation process, we try to set up a financial compensation mechanism. So the last point on this pillar is engaging with youth organization. So there are organizations that exist to amplify the voice of youth, and those are the youth-led organization and the youth-based organization. And often, well, maybe not often, but from time to time, those are not sufficiently integrated in the evaluation process, and it's essential. In their case, so we engage with over 400 youth-based and youth-led organizations, and it was really key to get more sense on the relevance of UNDP intervention, but also the quality in the field. So the third and last pillar that I want to mention is analysis and reporting. So we hold 5 sense-making workshop, and in that workshop, the idea was to give an additional opportunity for the youth to engage with us. And what they do is that we ask them to interpret and analyze the data that we collected. So the 600 story that I mentioned earlier. So they are at the center of the analysis. So that was the first point, giving an extra opportunity for the voice to be heard. The second one is that as an evaluator, sometimes you have your own bias when you analyze the data. And having that, you can compare the two. So I have my analysis of the data, they have another, and then you compare and you have an additional line of evidence. The second point of this pillar of analysis and reporting is that we also organize a validation workshop. So that was with completely different set of young people, individual. And what we did is that we sent to 16 young leaders from a flagship intervention of UNDP, was not part of the assessment, so they were not beneficiary of the different assessment that we did in our sample for UNDP. And we shared the preliminary findings of our report and the recommendation. And the idea was to see how much those findings resonate with their experience, but also how could we sharpen the recommendation. We also had another motive is that those individuals actually have a very important advisory role for the organization, because they also work with other departments in UNDP and provide comments on strategy and policy for their organization. And since we engage with them with our evaluation, the idea was that they can advocate for the use of our evaluation and our findings, which I think is key, and it was mentioned earlier in one of the presentation. My final point on this pillar is that evaluation has a very important function to play to shape our organization, in my case, UNDP. And as such, one of the recommendations of our one of the recommendation from our evaluation was actually to fostering the partnership with youth, and really not considering them just merely as a beneficiary of aid, but really as agents of change and full partner for development. And for that, we have a recommendation looking at what additional role could we give youth? So there was a issue of research, implementation, design, planning, even mobilization, and obviously M&E. So this is in a nutshell what I wanted to share about IU experience. Obviously, there is much more in the report, so I invite you to have a look if you have time. And I'm obviously available for any question during this panel and after the panel as well.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, thanks for sharing that experience, very practical, and it shows us that actually youth can play a different roles in all stages of evaluation, from data collection, analysis, the decision-making process. Help us to really understand what are the results about, like, do they make sense for the youth? And So I invite you to consider this as a good standing point on why to include youth and evaluation as well. And now I would like to ask all of you to imagine a hypothetical situation. No one has to answer, but I will just invite you to imagine. Imagine that you're a young evaluator today. And in today's environment, ask yourself, will you be able to land a job in evaluation with your experience after graduating your bachelor studies? Will you have the opportunities to reach or achieve the position or the roles you're in at the moment? What percentage of us will actually reach the point where we are? Just to try to imagine what are the barriers that young and emerging evaluators are facing when entering the job market or progressing on their careers. Nowadays, we see that for entry-level positions in M&E, there's a requirement of, like, not always, but most of the times, of having already some years experience. Who will be able to land on that job? Just like I would like to imagine on that scenario, to imagine what are the barriers of young and emerging evaluators. And also, what can we do to overcome those barriers? What can you do in your position? How can we actually involve youth in all stages of evaluation? This is just a question for you to think. You don't have to answer, but if you want to share some of your thoughts, you're welcome to do so. And now we have a Q&A session. If you have any questions for our panelists, you can just raise your hand. And if not, I actually will start. I have a few questions. Actually, the first one goes to Daniel. Daniel, since you presented your experience on what worked for youth engagement in your evaluation, I will be interested in hearing your thoughts on what is, in your view, the most significant barrier to youth engagement in an evaluation process.
Hello? Yeah, it works. Well, I did mention a few barriers which are external. So I mentioned the literacy, the digital divide, and others. But I think maybe one of the main challenges that I could see is internal. So, and is our institution, our system are able to integrate and make sure that there is an engagement with youth. And for that, in my case, a very specific case of the youth economic empowerment was the leadership support, making sure that you have a buy-in from your management, because that gave you the flexibility to innovate and implicate youth, because you need to know that if you don't have the system in place, it takes much more time, much more investment. So I will go for management support.
Thank you, Daniel. And anyone has, yes, please. We have one question from our audience.
So, very good evening. So my question will be for any member of the panel to respond to. Evaluators don't operate in isolation. You're either a state or a non-state actor, okay? And there are certain skill sets that are required for evaluators to be effective. How do we marry this? Because youth that are not skilled, how do they fit into this? And then that responds to partly the issue about management support, because youths have to prepare themselves, have to take responsibility, and have to be committed, to learning such a certain skill set to be able to be effective evaluators, either within or outside of government. And that sort of frame. Thank you.
Another question here. Let's take two questions and then answer it. Oh, you can. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for very interesting presentations. I just have a small clarification on what Marco has referred to as the Youth in Evaluation campaign, and that the countries are like signing and UN agencies. So I want to know how binding is this signature? So if they sign, what does it entail? So does it mean that they have to involve youth in certain evaluations or build capacities of a certain number of young people? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can answer these two and then take the second round for your. I will leave the mic open to anyone who wants to answer.
Well, I can start perhaps because also there was one directly for me. So it's not legally binding. I mean, it's a kind of voluntary commitment. Having said that, as I was mentioning, there are 6 task forces that are coming up with standards for the implementation of these commitments. And the idea is that then each organization that is signing the manifesto will self-report on the implementation. So on the one side, nothing to be scared, so it's not legally binding. On the other side, it's really a way to try to give an incentive for more and more organizations to start to be serious on engaging young evaluators. But I'm sure, I mean, we will have also some representative from governments who will also talk about that, about the manifesto, etc. And perhaps on the other questions, absolutely, I think it's very important to strengthen, the skill set as you were mentioning. I always say that it's very important to strengthen the technical skills, but also the soft skills, because we all know that evaluation is a technical exercise, but within a political environment. So also the soft skills are very important. And that's why the training that we are supporting, I mean, the one that was developed by EvalYouth, is not about a training on technical skills only, but it's really a training on career development. So it's really for the young person to try to make a self-assessment of his or her own skills, including the soft skills, to try to see what the labor market is demanding, what kind of skills the labor market is demanding, what are the gaps. So it is really about career development, because that would help the young evaluator then to access the labor market. Then the second point is about giving opportunities for these young evaluators to actually put in practice whatever skills they have learned in theory. And that's why, for example, just to give an example, within UNFPA, we created an alliance of UN agencies, about 6 UN agencies, that open up vacancies for young evaluators within the UN agencies at headquarter, regional, and country levels. Good news is that through this initiative, we have been able to hire about 60 young evaluators. Bad news is that the vacancy that we had was up for about 120, but we have been able to fund only 60 of them. But still, is an opportunity, and that's why through this manifesto there is this kind of voluntary commitment to hire more and more young evaluators. For example, in the case of UNFPA, in our evaluation policy, we made clear the principle that we should involve young people as much as possible. We have templates for term of reference for our own evaluations, and in the templates, when it comes to the composition of the team, of the evaluation team, there is also the profile of a young evaluator, so that our country offices are really demanded to always hire young evaluators. So it's really about creating the demand from the organization that are commissioning evaluations, so demand for young evaluators, because that will really facilitate also the strengthening of the skill sets that you were mentioning.
Yeah. And also, I would like to share with you, for example, EvalYouth's experience, because we also are worried about that, about actually promoting young and emerging evaluators, but like to be technically, like sound technically, and very skilled professionals. And in EvalYouth, what like all the activities we do, actually look for that, to train evaluators, to learn by doing, to gain that experience. We do have, for example, a mentoring program where it links a more experienced evaluator with young evaluators, and they have like this practical knowledge, and they can learn together intergenerational from one another, but we also have other activities and other programs at the global level, but also at the regional and national levels. If any of you are interested in knowing what's Able Youth doing in your country or your region, you can just click and go to our website, to our social media, or just approach me after this session, and I'll be happy to share, because there are a lot of things and we really want to build and collaboratively doing it. I think we had, like, anybody else wants to?
Maybe something small about the manifesto. I think when you look at the figures, the statistics, it's kind of a wake-up call. When you talk about youthful population, throughout this conference, over the years, we have been talking about the issue of culture and practice. I think it's important we start involving these people right away so that we can be able to start now influencing the issue of culture and practice on how we can be able to improve the use of evaluations in this context. Therefore, we are saying as government, let us be conscious about it. And also it speaks to about succession management, because we'll never be there. We want some young people to start taking over with that enthusiasm. Thank you.
And we have a couple of questions, and I think those will be the last ones.
Good evening. I'm Tashi from Bhutan. Actually, my question was related to the skills that gentleman over just questioned. And basically, I was imagining when Gabriel told us to. And going back to the imagination of youth just coming out of college, let's say the average graduation age is like 20, 21, 22, 21, let's say. And if you have to engage them, they may not have any kind of experiences, especially technical and soft skills, whatever it is. Given that, and as well, for the evaluation, for the people who are doing evaluation, it's basically when you budget, when you have to pay them, it has to be based on the skills that they have. And when we have to engage this youth, which we did in our country in terminal evaluation of UNFPA programs for the sexual and reproductive health and other programs. And there are cases where the consultants, when there's a requirement to engage youth, there is no definite prescription of the incentives, whatever you say, what they should be paid, what range of incentive they should be paid. So the consultants basically prescribe just as the consultants, the principal consultants sort of rate, and there's a difficulty in negotiating rates on that. So my question is probably to Daniel, who have experience, evaluating youth engagement and empowerment. Probably you might have come across this issues of allocating incentives, whether there's a framework of allocating, incentives, incentivizing, or providing some kind of consulting fees to those youth who are engaged in evaluating the programs and interventions. Thank you.
We have one anyway. Here.
Very brief. Just wondering if we do have enough evidence on where or under what circumstances young and emerging evaluators participate more in terms of regions, in terms of development or status of development on national evaluation system. Can we relate those things? Thank you.
Anyone wants to answer? Maybe Daniel, do you want to?
So I might start with the question that was addressed to me. So there's two parts. As I mentioned in my presentation, so we try to create a compensation mechanism, but that was more for use as beneficiary. And in that sentence, I said there were some success and some failure. And I think one of the failure was that one. Initially, what we tried to set up was to really give an amount of money that will compensate all the expenses for the youth to come and participate to the evaluation process. But due to the compressed timeline of our evaluation and all the administrative barriers we couldn't do that. So we went directly to the second best option, and which was not great. It didn't fix all the issue of leaving no one behind, which was doing a lottery per group that we will be involved. On the other part of regarding engaging young emerging evaluators, that we have very clear guidelines depending of the level of experience. So that's clear. We know which amount we need to pay. And what we do usually when we want to have this type of profile, and I didn't mention in my presentation because I really focused to the point that I thought were important, but this is also an important one. We do have some evaluator in our team that was young. There, what we work is through the VOPIT. So I think one thing that was in the previous question regarding the skill set and what should be done for young evaluators is be part of this association of evaluators, because we make a vacancy and publication directly there. And that actually we did manage to have some very good profile.
Thank you, anyone. I think we're short on time, so if you want to answer the second question, we just very brief. Alfredo.
Well, I think BOPIs have to still collecting data because they are not doing. And we need all the data to really put in front the numbers and understand what is the problem. And well, I think this is.
Yeah, really collecting data and acknowledging that need, right? That's a very good point. Now we'll pass to the second part of the session. It's going to be very brief, but thanks to all our speakers. And now I would like to invite to the stage to our second speaker, to Tashi Duba, who's the Senior Research Officer of the Gross National Happiness Commission Secretariat of the Government of Bhutan. To Bala Yusuf Yunusa, he's a Senior Technical Advisor of the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on the SDGs from Nigeria. And to Timothy Lubanga, he's a Commissioner for Monitoring and Evaluation Office of the Prime Minister in Uganda. And finally, to Natalia Aquilino, she's the Monitoring and Evaluation Director of the Secretariat of Industry and Productive Development in Argentina. Thanks, the four of you for being here. And can we share this presentation, please? So we've actually heard what your questions about the manifesto, what youth in evaluation is, and now we will talk a little bit about this, what youth in evaluation is, what's this campaign? And I have it here. Youth in Evaluation is a bold, new action-oriented initiative. And actually, with this campaign, we are encouraging to all those with power, evaluation commissioners, evaluators, senior evaluators, evaluator users, to take meaningful engagement of youth and young evaluators in evaluation to the next level, to actively involve youth in evaluation. Youth in Evaluation is a multi-stakeholder, intergenerational, and inclusive partnership for action, encouraging commitment to concrete action towards long-term, sustainable, and meaningful engagement of youth and young and emerging evaluators in all stages of evaluation. Can we play this? And now I will present very quickly a video what youth in evaluation is about.
Our world is facing profound challenges. Our world is facing profound challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, rising conflicts, discrimination, the digital divide, the erosion of civil space, and declining trust. And young people are not only heavily affected by this crisis, they are on the front lines for action and solutions. Young people are not only citizens with equal rights, but also powerful agents for change, whose voices must be fully heard.
And here we must, including in evaluation.
We must give youth space and support to be active leaders and contributors.
As meaningful engagement of youth in evaluation can be a turning point and a transformative voice.
A force that enrich evaluation and catalyze change for everyone.
Join us in supporting and reimagining youth in evaluation.
As part of data collection,
as crucial source of information.
As young evaluators,
as co-creators and co-managers of evaluation.
As young evaluation advocates,
we have a lot to offer.
We are not passive objects of evaluation. We want to contribute in lead evaluation from the front.
It's time to see us,
Listen to us.
Recognize us.
Include us.
Be a champion for us.
Be a champion for youth in evaluation.
Can we go to next slide?
So as I said, I mean, many of us already support youth in evaluation, but to further step up real youth engagement in evaluation, we need four things. First of all, a clear intent to do that. Second, a commitment, both personal, professional, and institutional commitment. We need to give space for youth and really learn from the experience about engaging youth in evaluation. And all of this is captured in the Youth in Evaluation Manifesto, which is available in 6 languages at the eval4action.org. So the Youth in Evaluation Manifesto is about recognizing and enhancing youth in evaluation, committing to building their professional capacities, and engaging youth in all phases of evaluation as key informants, as co-evaluators, co-advisors, co-decision makers, and co-advocates for the use of evaluation.
And finally, here we have the famous manifesto. Youth in Evaluation Manifesto, a call to action to meaningfully engage youth and young evaluators in evaluation. The manifesto says, we, the members of the global evaluation community, including governments, parliamentarians, voluntary organizations for professional evaluation, United Nations agencies, evaluators, academia, private sector, and the development sector, recognize that young and emerging evaluators are actively contributing to shaping the global evaluation culture and are multiplying the transformational power of evaluation to build a sustainable, inclusive, and equitable world framed by social justice and equity. We accept our role and responsibility in nurturing and supporting the meaningful engagement of youth and young and emerging evaluators in evaluation processes and in evaluation advocacy in order to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. We commit to undertake strategic and concerned efforts to build the professional capacities of young and emerging evaluators. We commit to advocate for and as well as to enhance real and meaningful engagement of youth in evaluation, focusing on the diversity of youth by collaborating with youth in the design, development, and use of the evaluation. This includes engaging youth and young and emerging evaluators in all phases of the evaluation, including as key informants to provide perspectives and evidence during the evaluation data collection, with a special focus on underrepresented youth groups. Co-evaluators who conduct the evaluation together with senior evaluation teams. Advisors who contribute insights to the key deliverables on the evaluation process. As decision makers who co-lead and co-guide the evaluation processes together with the commissioners and or managers of the evaluation processes, and as advocates for use of the evaluation. We acknowledge that meaningful engagement of youth and young and emerging evaluators in evaluation is an ongoing process and not a one-time effort, which requires reflection on the process and using lessons for action and change. We commit to be a champion for youth in evaluation.
So it's really a call to join the nearly 500 signatories to the Youth in Evaluation Manifesto, including the 110 plus organizations that have already signed, as already mentioned in my opening speech in this session. And it's really an invitation really to sign the Youth in Evaluation Manifesto. And we are really very, very glad today of having the colleagues representing governments, 4 governments from the Global South. And if I may, let me say that once again, the Global South is leading. So far, only governments from the South have signed the manifesto, and not yet governments from the global North. And this is not the first time that the Global South is leading. At least I'm talking about evaluation, the evaluation movement. So really, congratulations and thanks a lot to our colleagues today who are signing the manifesto, and we are going to listen briefly why they are signing. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, maybe we can start with Mr. Bala. Yusuf, you know, only 1 minute.
Okay, thank you very much. So when in 2015, world leaders adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, they envision a present and a future that is economically sustainable, socially inclusive, and environmentally resilient. That means the present and the future is about the youth. And in Nigeria, we have utilized the capacities of the youths in our voluntary national reviews. The first and the second one, they were actively involved through the non-state actors platform in consultations with all the key segments of the society. Today, Nigeria has the largest national social investment program in Africa, and youths are used as independent monitors and evaluators of this components, about 4 components of the National Social Investment Program. So today, and on this occasion, I personally reconfirm or recommit myself to mentoring young evaluators and also supporting youth in evaluation. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for that commitment. And now I will ask Mr. Tashid Duba from the Royal Government of Bhutan.
Thank you. I would rather read out what I have already written. I think as Marco has already mentioned this during this panel early on today's afternoon session. Today, I think we have about 1.12 billion young youth population, which is making up about 16% of the global population. Given this proportion of population, the UN Population Prospect 2022 has projected that nearly 2/3 of the world's population between 2022 and 2050 will be driven by these current age cohorts. And as such, they play a crucial role in our effort to development, and more so development plans, programs, interventions, and actions that matter to them. And therefore, it is only inevitable and paramount for the governments around the world to recognize a meaningful engagement of youth in evaluation of these plans, programs, interventions, and actions, so that they can contribute and make a difference to those programmatic actions that matters to them and the world around them. Towards this, I offer my full support and commitment to a meaningful, practical, constructive, and progressive engagement of youth in evaluation as a catalyst of a successful and wholesome socioeconomic development. With this, I thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And now I'll ask Mr. Timothy Lubanga from the Office of the Prime Minister in Uganda.
Thank you, Gabriela, and good afternoon to everybody. Dear colleagues, friends, we strive to harness in the most effective way the demographic dividends of over 70% of our population categorized as young people. As we transition to the new of the new normal, we commit to, in a creative way, parcel out a special place in the evaluation ecosystem for meaningful, proactive, and productive engagement of the vibrant youth who are the dominant population segment in the Global South. In all stages, processes, and aspects of policy, program, and project evaluations, right from conceptualization to planning, execution, reporting, and most importantly, in the utilization of results. I thank you.
Thanks a lot. And last but not least, to Natalia Aquilino, who's from the Secretary of Industry and Productive Development in Argentina. Adelante.
Thank you. Gracias, Gabriela. Very brief in order to honor my colleagues here. Just to say, I think, first of all, we need to say thank you to the UN for, again, leading this and inviting us in signing this manifesto. Thanks a lot to Gabriela for sharing youth and emerging evaluators so well and with so much charm, including emerging evaluators. I will always only say that I think this is another opportunity to keep on opening opportunities and broadening our base towards enhancing evaluation systems. So I really think that young and emerging evaluators are the next ones that will feel and will follow us on still enhancing our evaluation systems. And lastly, I think we also need to commit, and this is a personal belief, being a mentor, being very close to young and emerging evaluators in universities. We also need to commit in order to build stronger bridges between young evaluators and ourselves that are in middle career or maybe just finishing our careers. I think we had this big opportunity in building more strong bridges with young evaluators. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia. Gracias, and for pointing out this intergenerational aspects. And now can we go back to the presentation because we have only like one slide. But I will, you can stay here. It's okay. So just a quick mention about the standards that Marco already mentioned. These standards on enhancing meaningful youth engagement in evaluation. As Marco said, the manifesto is not really legally binding. The standards are actually co-creation to step up the practice and accountability towards engaging youth in evaluation. These standards are organized around 6 dimensions that actually recognize kind of the diversity of the actors who are signing the Youth in Evaluation Manifesto. These standards are tailored. These standards are being developed for specific target groups such as international agencies, BOPES, academia, governments, youth organizations, NGOs, and the private sector. And Marco, do you want to come for the very last slide? Yes.
No, it's with you.
Both, I guess. So we're really happy to announce and to share that in coming April, we will be having the Youth in Evaluation Week, which will launch this standard we've been talking about to enhance the meaningful youth engagement in evaluation. And we'll be really happy to have all of you joining in this Youth in Evaluation Week. Thanks a lot to all the government institutions, organizations, and individuals who are supporting and adopting the manifesto and who are actually taking real actions for an active participation of youth in evaluation.
And a big round of applause to our new government who signed. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Sorry for the 5 minutes.
We want to take a photo.
We want to